Hey there, you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion. Here's your host, RJ Carbone.
And a high drive into left center field. Stanley's going to watch another one fly. Are you kidding me? DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a one.
Take this time to apologize to absolutely nobody.
At the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! Mr. Nova.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied.
Rose, you shook up the world again.
I did it again. My God did it, man. I really just had
Gonna have to. Brunson running away. Oh my! He has been the best player to put on that uniform.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
All right. Well, they won. So we can all relax for a night. They won. And congrats. Not only did the Knicks win 112-98, congrats to Tom Thibodeau, who, is apparently a terrorist whenever the Knicks lose games. But Tom Thibodeau won his 200th game as Knicks head coach last night. The head coach who is easily the best head coach the Knicks have had since Van Gundy. And the concerns on Tom Thibodeau are valid. I get it. The concerns are valid. What's not valid are the extremes that some of you people will go to after a 3-game losing streak. That's not valid. I think what's valid is everything regarding the minutes and long-term sustainability. I understand that. But on a night like last night, when the Knicks have been desperately needing a win because they've been on this oh-so-terrible 3-game losing streak, and it was never going to be, good again. Tom Thibs picked up his 200th win, so I'm going to give him credit for that. I'm sorry to start this episode off like this, but come on. I saw a friggin' tweet last night from this Knicks fan page. I think it was called Go Knicks or Let's Go Knicks, or I forget the name of the page, and credit to him. He's built up a good following and everything. Who am I to speak? But the funniest shit. The most softest, oh yeah, this kid's probably 18 years old type of thing, where the tweet said, I'm going to read it word for word because I saved it. He said, I see OG standing on the wing with his hands on his hips. We all know he's not the kind of player to take possessions off, so I continue to question whether or not he should be out there. It's like, come on, man. We've gotten so dramatic with this thing where we're coddling these grown-ass men who play this sport for a living, and we're afraid to see them sneeze. We're afraid to see them yawn or take a deep breath. It's fucking crazy to me. I'm sorry, man. There's nothing that gets me going more than a snowflake. But hey, good win for the Knicks last night. They got off to a lethargic start. But it was pretty close for too long. 55-51, Knicks were barely up at the half. But they picked it up in the second half, right? They go on somewhat of an early 8-0 run in the third quarter, and then more towards the middle of the quarter, they go on this 11-0 run. You get good contributions from your second unit. You had a good second half from Landry Shamet. And so the Knicks go on to win over the Raptors 112-98. Evil Tom Thibodeau picks up his 200th win. And the amazing second unit that everybody loves and everybody wants to get playing time, they actually produced some good minutes last night together. It wasn't just Shamet, but I thought Precious was good. Both of them combined for 14 points. And then you go to the starters. Kind of a mixed bag. Obviously, Brunson and McHale were awful shooting-wise. Josh Hart, 21, 11, and 7. It was a good game from him. I liked the energy on the floor when Hart and Shamet were out there together. OG Anunoby, 27 points, couple steals, a block. It was a nice bounce back from him. 20 points now for OG in 3 of his last 5. Karl Towns with 27 points, 13 rebounds in his first game back from the brief injury. Thank God he's back. The Knicks needed him every bit, and that's where we're going to start in this episode. Karl Anthony Towns. An excellent performance from Towns last night. Again, 27 points, 13 rebounds, 3 steals. Let me read that again. I had the wrong lineup. 27 points, 13 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 9 for 14 shooting, 3 for 3 from 3, 6 for 6 at the foul line, plus 25 in the box, and that was across 34 minutes. All right. So he gets his 10th game ball of the year. Returns from injury and dominated, early on in the game, like right away in the first quarter, kind of looked a bit questionable. He was out there wincing around and grimacing, and he was moving slow. You could tell physically he wasn't there yet. He was a bit slow at the level defensively. He wasn't rebounding as much down low, early on at least. Every time he would win, Clyde was terrified and kept bringing it up. And I'm sure Twitter was totally cool with him being on the floor, right? Screw the win. I'm sure if you took a poll in the first quarter last night, Knicks fans would rather take a loss than have Towns lead them to a win, because that's where some of you are in terms of your soft mentality. But he figured it out. Believe it or not, he's a man, so he toughed it through, and he warmed up as the game went along, and he was fine at the end of the day. Obviously, it's something to monitor, and I wouldn't be shocked if he was questionable tomorrow night, but I think he's going to play. We shall see. But yeah, Towns is too important to sit, man. He's been their best Knick all year. That's not even a question anymore, right? This is a guy who's now become a legitimate MVP candidate. Brunson hasn't been good. This hasn't been his greatest season as a Knick. It's been his worst year as a Knick. He's still had a good year, obviously. Don't need to say that. But he's been struggling. He hasn't been good of late. And the Knicks have been making runs lately when Brunson's off the floor, and that happened again last night. Cat was on the floor, Brunson was off, and they made their second half run. And Cat's just... the guy's out there getting buckets. I don't know what else to say. He's so tough to guard, and he does it in so many ways. Obviously, operating pick and roll with Brunson. The first basket of the game for Cat comes off of a boomer set with Brunson. Cat makes the cut middle. Brunson finds him. He finishes at the basket. The second basket from Towns, it's out of a pick and pop with him and Brunson, but you've got Jakob Poeltl up at the level, so Towns decides to drive the lane and throw down a ferocious dunk. He has a three-pointer in transition as a trailer. Campaign makes the assist. He was out there all night. Just whoever was on him, he was punishing smalls. He'd get the occasional Bruce Brown mismatch, and he posted him with ease in the first half. Second half, he knocks down a three in his face. So his usual dominant self offensively. Defensively, I didn't think he was terrible. I don't know how many fouls he wound up with, but obviously the rebounding's there. But I thought he was making plays defensively. He finishes the game with 5 stocks. He steals the ball from Jakob Poeltl on the perimeter early in the game, ends up getting a layup in transition off of that, going coast to coast there. He picks Bruce Brown's pocket in the fourth quarter, going up for a jumper, strips the ball from him. So Karl Towns just continues to be the Knicks' best player, and that's why he's got 10 game balls, catching up to Brunson, who has 12. So good for Towns. Yeah, it's going to be a shorter episode. It's a game against the Raptors. But I thought the Knicks offense overall was good. Mentioned Towns, but also Hart and Anunoby. I mean, I thought the Knicks did a really nice job exploiting the Raptors very effectively exploiting their defense. And we're going to take a quick breather, and that's what I want to get into when we return from the show here on episode 777. Talk a little bit about the Knicks half-court offense. Stay with us. BD4 is available on social media for those who want to follow. You can find BD4 on Instagram at BD4Pod. You can find us on X at BD4Pod. And you can find us on Facebook by simply searching BD4. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, this podcast is also available in video format on YouTube. So be sure to go over to the YouTube channel, BD4, subscribe, like the videos, comment, and tell me how much I suck or maybe how much you like the video. We'd very much appreciate it. All right. Yeah, I thought in last night's 112-98 win, the Knicks, their offense wasn't great, but I thought they did a nice job exploiting what Toronto was trying to do. Toronto sent a lot of help off of Josh Hart, as you'd expect, and they sent a ton of nail help to prevent those Brunson drives off pick and roll. But I did think the Knicks countered it pretty well. You had a couple of possessions in the first quarter where Hart drives the open space on R.J. Barrett, gets a finish at the basket. There was another possession where the Knicks ran a double drag, and it ends up opening Hart in the corner with Barnes helping on McHale's 45 cut off the double drag. Hart ends up knocking down a catch-and-shoot corner ball. Second quarter, there were a lot of moments I liked where the Knicks were able to exploit that defense. There was one possession, Hart drives the closeout, passes to OG in the short corner with the defense collapsing to Hart. OG gets an easy basket. There was one where Brunson drives, but Toronto brings nail help off of Josh Hart on the wing. Brunson quickly pivots and makes a pass to OG in the corner. OG knocks down a three. And there was a lot of offense that featured OG in this game, especially in the second quarter, right? Earlier in the period, the Knicks ran a double pin in a baseline out of bounds set with Brunson and Cat screening with the pin for OG and Anunoby to cut to the corner for a three, and OG knocks down the catch and shoot three off the inbound pass. So using Hart the way they were scheming off of him well and opening up guys like OG and Hart taking advantage of it himself, I thought was good. But OG was strong in his bounce back. Again, 27 points for him, 8 for 13 shooting, 4 of 6 from 3. He likes playing against his former team, man. He is 4-0 against the Raptors now, and he's averaging 22 points and 5 rebounds on 60% shooting and 42% from 3 against the Raptors in those 4 games. So it's good to see that. It's good to see the shot returning, right? He was, again, 4 for 6 from 3 in this game. That's going to be very important. He's got to figure that three-point shot out more consistently. He's a very important offensive weapon on this team, believe it or not. With, everyone struggling at the moment from 3, with Brunson's confidence being a problem, with Towns consistently preferring to play inside. And also just, I thought this was a good point I saw on Twitter, without Dante this year, who was their high volume 3-point sniper, the Knicks are going to need that. They're going to need a knockdown shot when Brunson comes off. So, they're going to need OG to start knocking them down more consistently. They need a lot better than what he's been giving them. He's about 35, 36%. That's not good enough. And it's the corners, right? It's the corners that he really needs to start knocking down. That's usually where he makes his living because that provides that spacing in the paint. And again, it gives you that reliable option when Brunson comes off the ball screen. But, the problem has been lately he's not been knocking them down. And the above the breaks were falling early in the year. That's regressed a little bit, and so has some of the corner shooting to where we're at a point where OG has the same percentages this year on corners as he does above the break. Specifically, we need to see more accuracy from that right corner. That's not been falling for him this year. But it was nice to see the corners fall last night. Hopefully that's something that he can refine. Also did a nice job down low. I think he established position on the low post very effectively. He was able to draw contact and finish. He does that very well, where he's able to get in position and against a mismatch get his shot off. Middle of the second quarter, he fends off Grady Dick on the low post and dunks it between RJ and Pirtle. Middle of the fourth quarter, he posts quickly for a dunk in semi-transition. Hart makes the entry. So he's pretty good at establishing position there on smalls with his size as a bigger wing player. And I thought defensively, OG Anunoby picked it up in the second half. I thought he made RJ Barrett's life hell. He picked RJ on a drive in the third quarter. He jumped DHO from the gap to pick RJ in the fourth quarter. He blocked the shit out of an RJ Barrett drive later in the fourth quarter. Really doing a nice job stepping it up, using his size to get stops for the Knicks in the second half. Let's go to the bench really briefly. Precious was okay, but really I liked what I saw from Landry Shamet. Also, Campaign was a 0 again. And with Deuce McBride out for however long he's going to be out, it seems like Landry Shamet, not Campaign, is kind of stepping up as that sixth man. Campaign's kind of fading out really quickly here. He has not been good for this Knicks team for a little bit now. But Shamet, 8 points last night, 4 for 8 shooting. He now has 2 game balls. He's not going to give you much offensively. I like the process. I don't think he's doing anything wrong offensively. It's just a matter of shot making at this point. But the intangibles are good. The defense has looked very consistent. He's doing a nice job there. He's a very active defender. He's pretty decent in help. On the ball, he's pesky. He made a nice tip out that led to a Precious Achiuwa dunk. And again, I like the minutes where Shamet played with Josh Hart. I thought those were good minutes for the Knicks. So Landry Shamet, 8 points, gets his second game ball as a New York Knick. That's good for him. I think that's all we got, man. There's not much from this game. I'm ready for this OKC game. I need to get to this one. So I want to talk a little bit about what is up next with this Knicks team when we return from break here in episode 777 of the podcast. Stay with us. Be right back. Don't have time to sit down and watch a video? You can listen to BD4 on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also watch the video format on Spotify too. If you feel like supporting the podcast, you can Venmo at Robert-Carbone-JR-28. We really appreciate your support. Do you enjoy Yankees baseball but are tired of hearing me yap? I have a suggestion for you. Go check out Yankee Crazy Podcast. Greg Gill is a Yankees podcaster on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and he's now selling merch. Go to yankeecrazy.myshopify.com. Stay connected with us. Visit BD4blog.com to explore our blog, tune in to our latest podcasts, and follow us on social media. Thank you for being a part of this community. All right. Welcome back to the show. Why am I out of focus here? Happens way too often with this camera. I'm like out of focus. Here we go. Here we go. No, still not right. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, welcome back to the show. Welcome back, everybody. Episode 777 of the podcast. The Knicks beat the Raptors 112-98 at the Garden. Continue to dominate the two former Knicks as that Raptors team continues to lose games because that's all they do. They are a nice young team. We'll see what happens, though. Up next for the Knicks, folks, is the OKC rematch at the Garden. It was a nice competitive battle last week. It was a battle. It was competitive. The Knicks were in it the entire time until the end. That's cool. The fact that they don't have a win yet against a top 2 seed scares me. I need to see the Knicks beat a top seed to change my mentality. Because right now I've maintained the consistent opinion that I think this team is good enough to contend and make the playoffs and make a deep run. But I don't think they're winning a championship, and I'm pretty confident in that this season. I need to see that. Now, the roster matches up well with a lot of teams, so they can always prove me wrong. But like the old school in me, I just need to see a win against a top 2 seed, because every top 2 seed they've played so far, they've lost. They lost by 23 to the 2 seed Celtics on ring night. They lost to the 1 seed Cavs by 6 points at home. They lost to the 2 seed Houston Rockets by 12 points. They lost to the number 1 seed OKC Thunder last week by 10 points. So, that's about an average of losing by 13 points in those games. They're 0-4 against them. So, it's not a coincidence to me that every single one of those teams, Boston, Cleveland, Houston, OKC now, they all have one thing in common, where they're athletic teams with wingspan that play in aggressive pick and roll coverage. Right? They switch everything, and they're not afraid to hedge their bigs. And the one flaw in this Knick offense all season long has been their inconsistency to generate offense versus those types of defenses. For whatever reason, it slows the Knicks pick and roll attack down, right? Not for whatever reason, because they put their big on Josh Hart, and they put their wing to Karl Towns. So that's going to load up the paint, because the big's going to help off Josh Hart if you don't have him screening in the action. It's Brunson in isolation, when he gets the switch onto a wing defender, doesn't always lead to good things. Brunson's had trouble, or last week at least against OKC, he had issues finding the second side, hitting the short roll off the Isaiah Hartenstein hedge. Right, and Karl Towns is very hesitant to get off three-point looks against smalls. He would rather drive the closeout, or he would rather post the small. The pace, the ball movement, it slows down against switch defenses. And it's just one thing the Knicks haven't been able to figure out yet. Consistently countering, whether you're posting Cat on a small with Hart weak side, to open up a cut for him when that big comes over from the weak side. They've done some things, right? They brought Hart into the action to screen, or they've used him as the initiator. They've done a bunch of things, but it's just not consistently been good, especially against good defenses. You haven't seen it, right? You saw them handle the Wizards when they schemed him that way, and top teams have given them problems. So I need to see something, and Brunson needs to wake up. His confidence right now seems gone. You need him to start taking more threes and making them, obviously, but you need to see him start taking them again. He's not taking threes anymore. It seems like, I'd have to go back and watch film if I really want to get a deep analysis into it, but it seems like he's only taking threes when the big is in drop. If the defense is aggressive, if they're in a hedge, if they're switching, he prefers to get to the lane because that's where he lives, in that short mid-range area. But you're going to need him to start taking threes in volume again. You're going to need Mikal Bridges to start waking up too, because listen, he's been inconsistent all year. He had a good month in December. He's kind of been back up and down and not been good lately. He's back into his shooting slump. I think it was 4 for 18 last night. He's not knocking down threes anymore. You need him to wake up. Those above the breaks are not falling from him. But I just really want to see what they look like against OKC tomorrow, man. If they lose another game to a top seed, that's not a good look. I can't take it too serious. I at this point, competing isn't enough. I need to see a win. I'm old school like that. I do need to see a win. Show me you're at least in the conversation to make a finals run with a win tomorrow. So that's all we got. With that said, we're going to head to our trivia question to wrap this one up. So let's get to that right now. Okay. So for this episode 777 of the podcast, basic, simple, straightforward question for you. How many games in a row have the Knicks beat the Raptors? All right. How many games in a row have the Knicks beat the Raptors? So let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. Comment the answer, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, social media somewhere. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in front of all 2 of our listeners. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. And I need to see this Knicks team be a contender for me to really, really have any kind of hope regarding a championship this year. So with that said, we're going to wrap it up here. Episode 77. Episode 777 in the books. Appreciate you all tuning in. And I will see you probably after the next Knicks game. If I can get a Yankees episode in, I'll try to. But I'll see you in 778 regardless. Thanks all. Well, if you made it this far, that means you listened to or watched the entire episode. Thank you. Just remember to follow, subscribe, download, rate and review, and all that fun stuff to help out the podcast. And I will see you in the next episode of BD4.